The first key to optimizing your workspace for productivity, focus, and creativity is minimizing visual clutter because your brain is constantly processing everything within your field of view, whether you are aware of it or not. From a neuroscience perspective, attention is a limited resource, and every object in your environment competes for that resource. When your workspace is cluttered with unnecessary items, your brain has to filter through more information, which increases cognitive load and reduces your ability to concentrate on a single task. Visual clutter creates what can be thought of as background noise for the brain. Even if you are not actively focusing on those objects, your visual system is still detecting shapes, colors, and patterns, and your brain is deciding what to ignore and what to attend to. This constant filtering process consumes mental energy, leading to faster fatigue and decreased efficiency. Over time, this can make it more difficult to sustain deep focus, especially for tasks that require prolonged attention. By reducing the number of items in your immediate workspace, you simplify the visual input your brain receives. This allows your attentional systems to lock onto the task in front of you with fewer distractions. A clean and organized desk essentially removes competing signals, making it easier for your brain to enter a focused state. This is particularly important for tasks that require precision, problem-solving, or sustained mental effort. It's not just about removing everything, but about being intentional with what remains in your visual field. Keeping only the tools and materials relevant to your current task ensures that your environment supports your goals rather than distracting from them. At the same time, having one or two meaningful or motivating objects, such as a notebook, a quote, or something personally significant, can provide a subtle boost in engagement without overwhelming your attention. The key is balance. Enough simplicity to reduce distraction, but enough relevance to maintain motivation. Another important aspect is organization. Clutter is not only about quantity, but also about arrangement. Even a small number of items can become distracting if they are disorganized or scattered. When your workspace is structured and orderly, your brain can quickly understand the layout, reducing the need for constant adjustment and search. This predictability allows for smoother transitions between tasks and reduces the friction associated with starting or continuing work. Visual clutter can also influence stress levels. A chaotic environment can signal to the brain that there is unfinished work or lack of control, which can increase feelings of overwhelm. In contrast, a clean and organized space promotes a sense of control and clarity, which supports a calmer and more focused mental state. This emotional effect further enhances your ability to concentrate and think creatively. Over time, maintaining a minimal and organized workspace trains your brain to associate that environment with clarity and focus. This makes it easier to enter a productive state whenever you sit down to work, as your surroundings are already aligned with that goal. The second key to optimizing your workspace for productivity, focus, and creativity is optimizing lighting, because light is one of the most powerful regulators of brain state, influencing alertness, mood, and cognitive performance. Your brain uses light not just for vision, but as a biological signal that affects circadian rhythms, hormone release, and neurotransmitter activity. The quality, intensity, and timing of light in your workspace can either enhance your ability to focus or contribute to fatigue and distraction. Bright light, especially natural sunlight, increases alertness by stimulating retinal pathways that connect to brain regions responsible for wakefulness. When light enters your eyes, it helps suppress melatonin and supports the release of cortisol at appropriate times during the day, promoting a state of readiness and focus. At the same time, exposure to sufficient light enhances the activity of neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, which are critical for maintaining motivation, mood stability, and cognitive clarity. This is why working in a well-lit environment often feels more energizing and engaging compared to a dimly lit space. Natural light is particularly effective because of its intensity and full spectrum. Positioning your workspace near a window allows you to benefit from consistent daylight exposure, which helps maintain energy levels and supports a stable circadian rhythm. Even indirect exposure to outdoor light can have a significant impact. If natural light is limited, using bright indoor lighting that mimics daylight can help compensate, although it may not be as effective as real sunlight. At the same time, it's important to manage glare and excessive brightness. Harsh or direct light hitting your eyes or reflecting off your screen can cause eye strain and discomfort, which reduces your ability to concentrate over time. Proper positioning of your screen and light sources can minimize these issues. Ideally, Light should be distributed evenly across your workspace without creating strong contrasts or reflections that force your eyes to constantly adjust. Lighting also influences creativity and mental flexibility. Brighter environments tend to support analytical thinking and focused attention, while slightly softer lighting can promote a more relaxed state that is conducive to creative thinking. This means that adjusting light levels based on the type of work you are doing can be beneficial. For tasks that require precision and deep focus, brighter light is more effective, whereas for brainstorming or idea generation, a slightly dimmer and more comfortable setting may enhance creative output. Another important factor is the timing of light exposure. Consistent exposure to bright light during the day helps reinforce your circadian rhythm, which improves not only daytime performance but also sleep quality at night. In contrast, working in dim light during the day can make you feel sluggish, while exposure to overly bright light late in the evening can disrupt your ability to wind down. By intentionally designing the lighting in your workspace, ensuring it is bright, well-distributed, and aligned with your daily rhythm, you create an environment that supports sustained focus, stable energy, and improved mood, all of which are essential for productive and creative work. The third key to optimizing your workspace for productivity, focus, and creativity is designing your physical setup for posture and comfort, because the position of your body directly influences your brain state. From a neuroscience and physiology perspective, posture is not just about avoiding discomfort. It plays a role in regulating alertness, breathing patterns, and even cognitive performance. The way you sit or stand can either support sustained attention or gradually push your brain toward fatigue and disengagement. When you maintain an upright and well-supported posture, your nervous system tends to remain in a more alert and active state. This is partly due to how posture affects breathing. Sitting upright allows for deeper, more efficient breathing, which improves oxygen delivery to the brain. Better oxygenation supports clearer thinking, faster processing, and greater mental endurance. In contrast, slouched or compressed positions can restrict breathing, leading to shallow respiration and reduced oxygen flow, which can make you feel sluggish and less focused over time. The alignment of your body also affects muscle activation and energy levels. When your workstation is properly adjusted, such as having your screen at eye level, your keyboard within comfortable reach, and your chair supporting your lower back, you reduce unnecessary strain on your muscles. This minimizes physical discomfort, which is a major source of distraction. If your body is constantly adjusting to relieve tension or discomfort, your attention is divided between the task and the physical sensations, reducing overall productivity. Another important aspect is the relationship between physical comfort and mental endurance. Discomfort doesn't always appear immediately. It often builds gradually, leading to a decline in focus as the work session progresses. A well-designed setup helps you maintain a consistent level of comfort, allowing you to stay engaged for longer periods without needing frequent interruptions. This is especially important for deep work, where sustained attention is required. Your physical setup can also influence your level of engagement with the task. For example, having your screen at the correct height and distance reduces eye strain and makes it easier to stay visually focused. Proper hand and wrist positioning reduces fatigue during typing or other repetitive tasks. These small adjustments may seem minor, but they collectively create a more efficient and supportive working environment. In addition, incorporating some variability into your posture can be beneficial. Remaining in a single position for too long, even if it is technically correct, can lead to stiffness and reduced circulation. Alternating between sitting and standing or making small movements throughout the day helps maintain blood flow and keeps the brain more alert. Movement acts as a reset, preventing the decline in focus that often accompanies prolonged stillness. There is also a psychological component to posture. Upright and open positions are often associated with higher levels of confidence and engagement, while closed or slouched positions can signal low energy or reduced motivation. By adopting a posture that supports alertness, you are not only improving physical conditions but also influencing your mental state in a way that promotes productivity. By carefully designing your physical workspace to support proper posture and comfort, you create conditions that allow your brain to remain alert, focused, and efficient over extended periods, enhancing both productivity and creative output. The fourth key to optimizing your workspace for productivity, focus, and creativity is controlling your sound environment, because the brain is highly sensitive to auditory input, and sound can either stabilize attention or continuously disrupt it. Unlike visual distractions, which you can often ignore by looking away, sound is harder to filter out, especially when it is unpredictable. Your brain is wired to detect changes in the auditory environment as a survival mechanism. So sudden noises or irregular sounds automatically pull your attention away from the task you are trying to focus on. When your environment contains inconsistent or unexpected noise, such as conversations, traffic, notifications, or background interruptions, your brain repeatedly shifts between the task and the sound. This constant switching increases cognitive load and reduces your ability to maintain deep focus. Even if these interruptions are brief, they can break your concentration and make it harder to return to the same level of mental engagement. Over time, this leads to mental fatigue and reduced productivity. Creating a controlled sound environment helps minimize these disruptions and allows your brain to settle into a more stable state of attention. For some people, complete silence works best, especially for tasks that require deep concentration or complex problem solving. Silence removes competing auditory input, making it easier for the brain to focus entirely on the task. However, not everyone thrives in silence, and in some cases, a completely quiet environment can make minor noises feel even more distracting. This is where consistent background sound can be beneficial. Low-level, steady audio, such as white noise, ambient sounds, or instrumental music, can mask unpredictable noises and create a uniform auditory backdrop. This reduces the brain's need to constantly monitor for changes in the environment, allowing it to stay focused for longer periods. The key is that the sound remains consistent and non-intrusive, without sudden shifts in volume, rhythm, or content that could capture attention. The type of sound also matters. Audio that contains language, such as conversations or lyrical music, can interfere with tasks that involve reading, writing, or verbal processing. This is because the brain automatically tries to interpret language, even when you are not consciously paying attention to it. In contrast, instrumental music or neutral ambient sounds are less likely to compete with cognitive processes, making them more suitable for focused work. Another important factor is control. Being able to adjust your sound environment, whether by using headphones, selecting specific audio, or reducing external noise, gives you the ability to match your environment to your task. This sense of control itself can reduce stress and improve focus, as your brain is not constantly reacting to external disturbances. Sound also influences mood and energy levels. Certain types of music or ambient audio can create a more relaxed or energized state, depending on the task you are performing. This can be particularly useful for creative work, where a slightly elevated or flexible mental state may enhance idea generation. By intentionally shaping your auditory environment, reducing unpredictable noise, and introducing consistent supportive sound, you create conditions that allow your brain to maintain stable attention, reduce distraction, and sustain higher levels of productivity and creativity over time. The fifth key to optimizing your workspace for productivity, focus, and creativity is matching your environment to the type of work you are doing. Because different cognitive demands require different brain states. Your brain does not operate in a single mode. It shifts between focused, analytical processing and more open, flexible thinking depending on the task. If your workspace is not aligned with the specific demands of your work, it can create friction, making it harder to perform at your best. For tasks that require deep focus, such as studying, writing, coding, or problem solving, the brain benefits from a highly controlled and minimal environment. In these situations, reducing distractions is critical. A clean desk, limited visual input, stable lighting, and minimal noise all help the brain narrow its attention and concentrate on a single objective. This focused state is associated with increased activity in neural circuits related to attention and executive function, allowing you to process information more efficiently and sustain effort over longer periods. In contrast, creative work often benefits from a slightly different environment. Creativity involves making connections between ideas, exploring possibilities, and thinking in a more flexible way. This type of thinking can be enhanced by a workspace that is less rigid and slightly more stimulating but still intentional. Having access to tools, notes, visual references, or even a bit of environmental variation can help trigger new associations in the brain. The key is not clutter, but curated stimulation, elements that support idea generation without overwhelming attention. Switching between these modes is an important part of productive work. If you try to perform deep analytical tasks in a highly stimulating or distracting environment, your attention will be divided and performance will suffer. Similarly, if you attempt creative thinking in an overly sterile and restrictive setting, you may find it harder to generate new ideas. By adjusting your workspace based on the task, you allow your brain to enter the most appropriate state for that activity. Another important factor is context-dependent behavior. Your brain forms associations between environments and the types of activities performed in them. If you consistently use a specific setup for focused work and a slightly different setup for creative work, your brain begins to recognize these cues and shift states more quickly. This reduces the time and effort required to get into the right mindset, improving both efficiency and output. Even small changes can help create this distinction. For example, you might adjust lighting, rearrange objects on your desk, change your sound environment, or switch locations entirely depending on the task. These cues signal to your brain that the mode of work has changed, making it easier to transition between focus and creativity. This approach also helps prevent mental fatigue. Staying in a single cognitive mode for too long can be draining, but alternating between focused and creative states allows different neural circuits to be engaged. This not only improves performance, but also sustains energy over longer periods. By intentionally designing your workspace to match the demands of your work, you create an environment that supports both precision and creativity, allowing your brain to operate more effectively across different types of tasks. The sixth key to optimizing your workspace for productivity, focus, and creativity is creating strong mental associations with your environment, because your brain learns to link specific places with specific behaviors over time. This process is a form of contextual conditioning, where repeated experiences in the same setting strengthen neural connections between the environment and the mental state you typically occupy there. As a result, your workspace can either become a powerful trigger for focus or a source of distraction, depending on how consistently it is used. When you repeatedly perform focused, goal-directed work in a particular space, your brain begins to associate that environment with concentration and productivity. Over time, simply entering that space can activate the neural circuits related to attention and task engagement. This reduces the amount of effort required to get started because your brain is already primed for the type of work you intend to do. In contrast, if a space is used for multiple unrelated activities, such as working, watching videos, eating, and relaxing, the associations become mixed, and the brain receives conflicting signals about what state it should be in. This is why having a dedicated workspace, even if it is small, can make a significant difference. The key is consistency. The more reliably you use a specific area for focused work, the stronger the association becomes. This consistency acts as a form of training for your brain, gradually making it easier to enter a productive state without relying solely on willpower or motivation. Over time, the environment itself becomes a cue that initiates focus. This principle also applies to the start and end of work sessions. If you begin your work in the same way each time, sitting in the same place, arranging your tools, or following a brief routine, you reinforce the connection between that sequence and a focused mental state. Similarly, ending your work in a consistent way helps signal to your brain that the task is complete, allowing you to mentally disengage and recover more effectively. These repeated patterns strengthen the boundaries between work and rest, which is important for both productivity and overall well-being. Another important aspect is reducing behaviors in your workspace that conflict with your intended use. For example, if you frequently use your workspace for entertainment or passive activities, your brain may start to associate that environment with relaxation rather than effort. This makes it harder to concentrate when you actually need to work. By limiting the range of activities performed in that space, you maintain a clear and strong association that supports your goals. There is also a motivational component to these associations. When your brain recognizes a space as one where progress and accomplishment occur, it can create a sense of readiness and even anticipation. This makes it easier to overcome resistance and start working, especially on tasks that require sustained effort. By consistently pairing your workspace with focused, intentional activity, you train your brain to respond automatically to that environment, making productivity, concentration, and even creativity more when you integrate all of these elements, minimizing visual clutter, optimizing lighting, improving posture and physical setup, controlling your sound environment, aligning your space with the type of work, and building strong mental associations. You create a workspace that actively supports your brain rather than working against it. Instead of relying solely on willpower, your environment begins to guide your behavior, making it easier to enter states of deep focus, sustain energy, and access creativity when needed. Over time, these small intentional adjustments compound, turning your workspace into a reliable system that enhances both the quality and consistency of your performance.